Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. So in CookieCast, it's the Laced Out podcast, our NFL podcast. And apparently, we've got a guest again. Yep, I'm on a roll, kids. Guests all over the shop. Guest. Very special guest, as discussed early on in the podcast. More of a co-host at this point. Not even a guest anymore. Find out who our co-host, co-guest. Find out who our guest is by staying tuned. Before that, please do consider like, share, subscribe, and comment. Leave a review where you can leave a review. Obviously, the big one there is share the podcast around. If you know someone who enjoys the American football, send this podcast in their direction. They might even thank you. Who knows? Right, let's get started. Here we go. This is CookieCast. Laces out.
Welcome. Hi, everybody. Welcome in. Oh, no, that seems to have got it. Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen. And I know what you're thinking. He's obviously on his deathbed. He's on his last legs. It's all right, folks. I'm back. I'm okay. Andy and Tony from last week did an excellent job keeping the ship on the straight and narrow. So well done to those boys. But I am back to pick up the rudders again and lead the podcast into the choppy waters. And obviously, for those of you watching on YouTube, you'll see that it's not just me and Mr. Cook. The guest has been sorted for what feels like a third possible week in a row, which is unheard of on the podcast this season. So welcome along to Podcast Alone. He's been on more times than we can count at this point. It is indeed Matthew with two T's. Herlihy. How are we this week, Matthew?
Am I called podcast alumni yet? Does
So
that
I think at this point you're essentially the other co-host. I'm just thinking, like, pretty sure by this point you've transcended like guests. You know, like when somebody who's on a TV show goes from special guest to actual, cast.
Yeah.
It's basically that you're one of the crew now.
Is it the bit like when it sort of like says on the cast list? It's normally sort of like it lists all the people and then "and with" on the end.
Yeah,
that's
not guest starring.
Definitely not
it's
introduced.
Not guest starring anymore. It's just "and with" Matthew Herlihy. So let's.
I'm very well, by the way. I'm very well.
Thank you very much, Matthew. Glad to hear
play
it.
that up. Yeah.
Obviously, not to dive too far behind the curtain, but obviously Matthew and I saw each other last night and played football with each other. So very nice. Very nice.
Is that what it's calling it these days?
Oh yes, that's definitely what we're calling it these days. So, as it's Matthew's first appearance on the podcast this season, we do have to come to him for his Super Bowl and regular season MVP picks. So, Matthew, who are the two teams you believe will contest this season's Super Bowl?
From the AFC, I'm going to go for the Cincinnati Bengals.
Oh, okay. That is a wild card.
Yeah, I just fancy them to get there.
I'll tell you something. If they make it there, they have done a hell of a job because I'm pretty sure they're 4-7 at the minute, so they're gonna have to run the table pretty much.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
I will say this.
Yeah,
It does feel like they've been holding out for something all season. Like every week, it's been like, is this the week where things are going to like click into place and they're going to play the game? They felt very much like a team that was. I mean, I think I say it every week. They feel like a team that's been decimated in the off season because they basically have. But it does feel like they're
Yeah.
a team that's waiting for something, like somebody to fire the starter pistol, and they can be like, "Oh, let's go and play now."
Yeah, I think they can definitely put up points. But yeah, I'll stick with the Bengals because they were, when the season started, they were one of my picks from that conference. But yeah, if they can get the defense sorted, I think they'll definitely give the rest of the teams in the AFC a lot of trouble. And then from the NFC, I'm going to go with the machine that is the Detroit Lions. So
Yes, the Detroit Lions becoming a very, very popular selection in the podcast. Not wanting to toot my own horn, but obviously, two, I was picking the Detroit Lions in week 1, so just say. So, of your Detroit Lions Cincinnati Bengals matchup, who would you have as the Super Bowl winner of those two teams?
I've picked off Smokey Joe Burrow because I just think his quarterback will get it and probably play well.
Hang on, no. So you think the Bengals will win and Burrow get the game?
Yeah.
Lovely. Cincinnati. Poor old Detroit.
Yeah.
Okie dokie. So that just leaves us with your regular season league MVP selection. Just to put it into context before we go any further, so far we've only had 3 different people mentioned. 3 people have gone for Josh Allen, 2 people have gone for Patrick Mahomes, and I went for CJ Stroud. So at least 3 of us aren't winning at this particular point.
Well, I've got none of that.
Okay, that's fine.
And
say it with me.
to lessen the blow to Detroit losing in the Super Bowl, I'm going to go for Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Amon-Ra, interesting.
Amon-Ra, yes.
I don't know the last time a wide receiver would have won it, if ever.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, but I mean, he's probably one of, if not the best player on that team. So it wouldn't surprise me. Let's put it that way. If he ended up doing something stupid in the last couple of weeks of the season, getting high honours. So that is our season-long picks done for Mr. Herlihy. So we'll need to dive in to Week 12's games and go through the details of who got the predictions correct. Sadly, no side bet to go through for those of you who obviously watched last week. Due to my absence, Andy didn't want to put all that hurting on Tony and have him select 4 teams for me. As it turns out, it probably wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world, as with 11 of his 13 selections correct, Tony did get the win this week and is the first guest to have got a point on the board this season. Tony's 13 selections, the only 2 that let him down were the Steelers at the Browns, which none of us got correct, and the Texans at the Titans. The Titans at the Texans, which again none of us got correct. Every other selection that he made,
I'm texting him right now.
He'll be absolutely thrilled to hear. So Andy only got 9 of the 13 selections correct. He was let down by the Steelers, the Texans, the Commanders, and the 49ers. And I got 3 incorrect. So I got the Steelers, Texans, and the Commanders wrong. So the one that basically won it for Tony was his faith in the Cowboys, which, when you think about it like that, is absolutely mental. That was nice and short and sweet because there's no side bet to go through for Week 12. So that's Week 12 done and dusted. All we need to do is go through Week 12's stats, which we do all have to hand, I believe. I don't know if it's you going first, Andy, or is it me to lead off, or is it indeed Matthew?
I was gonna swap things around, and then I saw one of the stats, and I was like, "Oh no, we'll just do it as usual." So it's me to lead off. They as has happened in the past, and I think we can all agree, as the season goes on, those stats get bigger, and there's more of them. So I have I have some that we might have to take a break partway through one of my stats because it's that big just to digest it. And I don't think I'm the only one. I'm pretty sure, Paul, you've got a monster stat. And yeah, sorry, Toots. I feel like I should be paying you to deliver the stats this week because.
Jeez, five paragraphs.
I've sent you War and Peace. Now read it. Massive shout out to the Stats Mistress this week, who dived well and truly in at an opportune moment to get us the stats in between a lot of other goings on. We here at the Laces Out podcast always appreciate any stats that we get. So it's always a big shout out to the Stats Mistress. And she sends credit to Nate Davis of USA Today because he always delivers. Speaking of delivering, this stat is not about that because this is about the Texans are now losers of 4 of 6 after getting upset at home Sunday by the struggling Tennessee Titans. Just as the AFC South leaders' passing attack is rounding back into form with wide receiver Nico Collins back on the field. The ground game is suffering a concerning fall-off. The Texans probably don't have to worry about missing the playoffs, but they're certainly not the Super Bowl threat many anticipated. Number 2, and it's time to strap in because we're going to talk at length about the Washington Commanders are also showing cracks. Dropping a 34-26 decision at home Sunday to the Cowboys in a game largely defined by special teams. The Commanders basically lost in the third phase, allowing a pair of touchdowns on kickoff returns, including on a failed onside kick attempt in the game's final seconds. While Austin Seibert missed a field goal and 2 extra points, the second preventing what would have been a 27-27 tie with 21 seconds to go and almost certain overtime. Number 3, 4. Tampa Bay Buccaneer players ran for a touchdown in Sunday's 30-7 rout of the Daniel Jones-less New York Giants. Quarterback Baker Mayfield was one of them, though this was his first game this season without a touchdown pass. Number 4, 6. Teams: Baltimore Ravens, Denver Broncos, Texans, Indianapolis Colts, New England Patriots, and Commanders have not yet had an off week this season. All of them will do so in week 14. Conversation I had with the Stats Mistress earlier this evening was that this week and next week are massive bye weeks, which going to cause some upset. And my final stat, number 5 for me, is Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa's record another victory against the Patriots in Sunday's 34-15 game, one in which he threw 4 touchdown passes. Winners of 3 in a row, the Finns have worked themselves back into the playoff conversation, but must head to Green Bay for a Thanksgiving night date with the Packers. Not to foreshadow anything, I know what I've gone with on that game. Now then, I believe I am sending us over to our Williams correspondent. Mr. Williams, do you have some stats for us, sir?
I certainly do. So, on a day when Detroit's top-ranked scoring attack was held in check to some degree, the defense continued picking up momentum of its own, allowing just 6 points for the second straight week, tied for the club's season low. After combining 3 scores on Sunday, Lions running backs David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs are the first teammates to have at least 10 rushing touchdowns in multiple seasons, and also managed to do it in consecutive seasons. However, Montgomery, shoulder, was one of several Detroit players who got banged up in Indy. Wide receiver / punt returner Khalif Raymond, left tackle Taylor Decker, and cornerback Carlton Davis II also on that list. The Lions seem to be widely regarded as the league's best team, yet they can hardly afford to let up and must hit the field again on Thanksgiving with the Philadelphia Eagles nipping at their heels. A young Los Angeles Rams defense had perhaps its worst performance of 2024 in a 37-20 loss to the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday night. LA, 5-6, is now tied for last place in the NFC West. If only one game out of first, that division is mental. But Sean McVay's team will have to tighten up with several more strong offensive opponents on the docket. Houston's kicker, Kylie Fairbairn, has hit 12 field goals from 50-plus yards this season, already an NFL record. Of course, if Fairbairn had hit a chip shot from 28 yards in the final 2 minutes, maybe the Texans could have staved off the Titans. I mean, kick a man whilst he's down, you absolute bastard. And my final stat before passing over to Toots. Even though Titans quarterback Will Levis outplayed Texans counterpart C.J. Stroud in Sunday's surprise triumph, the second-year passer was still sacked 8 times by Houston, 7 in the first half alone. Oh my good God. Over to you, Matthew, to tie us up and finish us off.
To bring us home. So with 302 yards from scrimmage and 2 touchdowns against the Rams, Eagles running back Saquon Barkley is deserving of all the MVP momentum that's already coming his way in what may already be the best season of his 7-year NFL career. I didn't realise he'd done 7 years. The Broncos look like a good bet to reach the playoffs for the first time since they won the Super Bowl, or since they won Super Bowl 50 with Peyton Manning and co. But if they want to make any noise this time around, they have to get more from the run game, and we don't mean quarterback Bo Nix. Running back Javonte Williams had a team-high 8 carries in Sunday's defeat of the Las Vegas Raiders, and that produced -2 yards. Terrible. Despite surviving the Carolina Panthers, the Kansas City Chiefs hardly look like a team on track for the league's first ever Super Bowl three-peat. A club that's become reliant on its defense and referees in recent years had surrendered 57 points over the last 2 weeks. Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes is eating up, matching his season high with 3 touchdown passes in Charlotte and giving him 10 over the past 4 games. However, the two-time...
Can you lads hear that?
Sorry. What?
I'm just into. Oh, I think that's the sound of the lawsuit that the Chiefs are just placing against the podcast as we speak.
Oh, God damn it.
Carry on.
Anyway, however, the 2-time league MVP was also sacked by a season high 5 times. The Niners are in trouble. They're averaging 16.7 points since their Week 9 bye, bottoming out in Sunday's 38-10 faceplant at Lambeau Field. Even if they managed to qualify for the postseason, a team dealing with so many injuries doesn't look capable of doing much damage. Meanwhile, 49ers CMC Packers counterpart Josh Jacobs tied his career high by scoring 3 touchdowns while running for 106 yards. Green Bay is quietly coalescing. Yeah, that's the one. Into a dangerous threat in the NFC. We love that players want to pay homage to former NFL running back Marshawn Lynch, one of the most entertaining and maybe the most authentic players the league has ever had. bit. It's a little perplexing that use of his signature celebration doesn't draw a flag for taunting, even if it is apparently does result in a fine. And that's all I've got.
Lovely. Obviously, Andy was a little bit naughty there, giving San Francisco 49ers base start to a San Francisco 49ers.
In my defense, I was like, oh, there's a 49ers stat. I imagine Matthew would want to read out a 49ers stat. I just presumed it was going to be a good one and maybe should have read it before I said it.
You know,
in my defense, and I'm sticking to it.
You know what? If we just go back to that Kaimi Fairbairn stat, where I was like, kick a man while he's
I got a pass comment on my fantasy kicker.
Yeah, I think the less we say about fantasy, the better. Although, to be fair, 2 of the 3 people in this particular chat room are nailed on for the playoffs. Just saying.
That's what I came to talk about, the fantasy.
If there's one subject that I was like, if there's one subject to avoid like the plague, let's make it the fantasy football, because oh god.
So that's week 12 done and dusted. Put to one side. We don't need to speak about it again. Week 13 brings with it Thanksgiving week. Obviously, we don't celebrate that over here in the United Kingdom, so everyone's probably sat there just thinking, what's that?
If anybody needs to know, it's the day before Black Friday.
Yeah, that is probably that is probably how it's better known over in the UK, to be fair. And I suppose the simplest way is that most people in America are normally pissed by about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, depending on where they are in the country. And then they just eat basically just a huge Christmas dinner, but with
cornbread,
added sweet potato casserole with like marshmallows.
Something known as yams. Nobody's really sure what yams is, but it's there.
Yeah.
And
I think they're all going to have to be intoxicated this year for the festivities that are Cowboys versus the Giants. Because
I mean, I didn't want to be the person who brought it up.
It's going to be a tough watch.
God.
Can you imagine you're there,
the season, you've
got the dinner cooking, you're like, right, let's pour a drink and get the football on. What's that? I think the TV's broken because apparently somebody at the NFL programming is having an absolute giraffe on this one. Who do I see about the scheduling for this steaming pile of?
But the worst thing is you just know that at the start of the season, we're like, lads, we have absolutely smashed this one out of the park. Cowboys Giants, that is one of the biggest rivalries in the game. This one,
America's team, America's game.
So you watch it, it'll probably get like amazing viewing figures as well because everyone will either be asleep or intoxicated.
To be honest, I think the Cowboys game normally does pull in the most viewing figures of either of the 3 games. So obviously, with it being Thanksgiving, they don't put any teams on the bye, so all 16 games are in play this week. All 32 teams have a game, and then we'll go back to the byes from week 14 onwards. So that means that myself, Mr. Cook, and Mr. Herlihy need to pick 16 games. I have done this. Andy has also done this. But we are going to go through the picks with Matthew live on the podcast. So before we start doing that, we are going to step away momentarily, take a short break, reconvene, and then we'll come back with Matthew's pick along with myself and Andrew's pick, starting with the Chicago Bears at the Detroit Lions in the first of the 3 Thanksgiving game slot. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back. And just like that, we are indeed back on your screens. So, like we said, Week 13 starts with the 3 slate of Thanksgiving games. Now, obviously, these would kick off at, I believe it's 12:30 East Coast time in the States. Does that make it 9:30 for some? If on the West Coast, I believe. But they're 8 hours behind, aren't they? So, literally, football with breakfast, I mean, it's a wonderful thing. Let's be honest. But 5:30 over here for the Chicago Bears at the Detroit Lions. I'll come to Matthew and ask if I need to even ask which way he's gone with his selection on this game.
Nah, you don't. Just put me down for Detroit.
I'm going to say the Chicago Bears to get the Eagles. Next up, as discussed on the podcast, it is the game absolutely no one wants to see. But if you do have to watch it, maybe have a couple of drinks first. It might make it a little bit spicier. It is the New York Giants at the Dallas Cowboys in a game where, of course, in the calendar year 2024, the Dallas Cowboys have not won at AT&T Stadium. Myself and Andy think they will break that particular duck this week and get the win over the Giants. Do you agree, Matthew?
Yeah. I think they'll make Jerry happy on Thanksgiving, so in Jerry World.
I mean, I think if the Giants hadn't have let go of Daniel Jones, I think I would have picked him in this one because he's a much better quarterback than Cooper Rush. But
Yeah,
strange. Next up, it is the third and final of the Thanksgiving games. Obviously, this technically will be played on Friday morning over here. And it is the Miami Dolphins travelling to the frozen tundra to take on the Green Bay Packers. How do you see that one going, Matthew?
Yeah, I think Green Day showed their Super Bowl credentials against 49ers last week. It was a tough, top game. So I'm going to go with the Packers.
Yeah, no great shocks there. It's the way that me and Andy have both gone as well. I think there was something doing the rounds where Mike McDaniel got asked a question in his press conference last week, saying like something about, "Oh, you're looking forward to the chance to show that you can play a cold weather game or something like that," because obviously they don't usually play in like less than 30-degree weather or something like that. So obviously the fact that they're going to have to go and almost literally freeze their bollocks off on Thanksgiving night in Green Bay will be quite the test for them. And then I think this is a tradition. I don't know if it started last year. It's been going for at least a couple of seasons. But then they have the Black Friday game, which I believe will be around 8 p.m. over here in the UK. This season, it is the Las Vegas Raiders at the Kansas City Chiefs. Potentially the most one-sided game of Week 13.
Yeah, I think Abdullah's going to get about 3 touchdowns for the Raiders. I think it's
I'll stick down for the Chiefs then, shall I?
So yeah, put them down on the Chiefs. Yeah.
Okay, so then we move to the Sunday slate of games, and the first of which sees the Los Angeles Chargers at the Atlanta Falcons. Now the Falcons are obviously coming off their bye. The Chargers are coming off the loss in the Harbaugh Bowl against the Ravens.
Yeah.
Me and Andy have both gone for the Chargers to bounce back on this one. Where have you gone with Chargers Falcons?
Yeah, I'm gonna go for the Chargers. I think Falcons probably be a bit rusty.
Okay. I'll say it every week. When your quarterback is Kirk Cousins, you deserve everything you get. Next up, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers at Matt's Super Bowl pick, Cincinnati Bengals. So I'll come to him first. Is this the week that they start their charge?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know where the Super Bowl is this season. So are you going for the Bengals?
Yeah.
The Bengals are at home, and divisional games are weird. Obviously, the Steelers lost at the Browns last week as well, so wouldn't be the most surprising thing if the Bengals got the win here. However, me and Andy have both gone with the Steelers on that one. Next up, it's another divisional match, and it is the Texans at the Jaguars. Now, me and Andy have both gone for the Texans, even though obviously they lost another divisional game last week at home to the Titans. And I believe the Jags do tend to do quite well at home against the Texans. Which way have you gone, Matthew?
I've got no Jaguars in any of my fantasy teams, so I'm going to go for the Texans and hope that Dell doesn't tank.
Oh, it's lovely. Excellent wordplay. Just beautiful. Okay, the next game is our first difference of opinion for myself and Mr. Cook. We have the Arizona Cardinals at the Minnesota Vikings. I've gone with the Cardinals. Andy's gone with the Vikings. Matt has gone with
The Vikings.
Interesting. Home field advantage?
I just think Jefferson had such a poor game last week that he's going to light it up this week. So
wouldn't be surprised if he did.
Yeah.
Would not be surprised. Next up, we have the Indianapolis Colts at the New England Patriots. What have you got down for that one?
Oh, yeah. I'll go for the Colts, I think.
Yeah, me and Andy have both gone the same way. That's one of those coin flip games for me. Wouldn't be surprised if Pat's got the win in that one. Colts are a bit hit and miss. Next up,
probably a bit high scoring as well.
Yeah, wouldn't be surprised if it went off a bit there. Next up, we have the Seattle Seahawks at the New York Jets. I mean, it's the Jets. I know they're at home, but good lord, I think there's been talk this week of there's a possibility they might look to shut Aaron Rodgers down for the season.
Yeah, I think there's a point that they're looking at maybe just tank the rest of the season. That includes benching Rodgers, but honestly, they could leave him in and also tank the rest of the season. So.
Yeah. Sacking the general manager. That is Mr. Rodgers. I mean, he must be tired from all the roles he does in the Jets.
It's weird, isn't it, when he's running the entire basically running the entire organisation from top to bottom.
Yeah.
Are you picking the Seahawks like me and Andy?
Yeah. I don't think they'll win by much, but yeah, I think it'll be a dire game, that.
I don't know. I reckon if the Seahawks get up by a couple of touchdowns, it could be a bit of a blowout.
Yeah.
Next up, we have the Tennessee Titans at the Washington Commanders. I know that obviously Mr. Jaden Daniels is your starting quarterback in fantasy. Are you backing him
Absolutely,
to get a big win?
Yeah.
You'll all be shocked to hear that we've all picked the Commanders, because obviously the Titans are so good. Next up, we have another interdivisional match, as we've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Carolina Panthers. Baker to continue his hot streak.
Ooh. Yeah, you see, I'm a bit torn on this one. I can see him losing it. Because I think Panthers might have Phelan back. And they've started to play that running back, haven't they, as well? Is it Brooks?
To be honest, I've not really paid much attention to the Panthers this season.
Because Chuba Hubbard has been their main running back, hasn't he? Oh, what shall I do? Yeah, I'm gonna go with Panthers.
Interesting. Well, me and Andy do not agree, as we've both gone for the Buccaneers on that one.
Yeah, I've got Bucky Irvin as well, haven't I? It's
very true.
Tough one.
Next up, we have the Los Angeles Rams at the New Orleans Saints. What do you reckon on that one?
Yeah, the Saints are coming off a bye, I think. So yeah,
They are indeed.
I think they'll win.
Saints for you. Me and Andy have both gone with the Rams to right the ship there. The next one is the last difference of opinion that myself and Andy have, where we've got the Eagles at the Ravens. I've gone with the Eagles. Andy's gone with the Ravens. Where are you putting your hat?
I will go Ravens.
Obviously, that's the matchup of the two best running backs in the league currently, in Saquon versus King
Lamar.
Henry.
Oh, sorry.
Well, yeah. Obviously, you've got the best running back in Lamar Jackson as well, haven't you? So, I reckon it could come down to whichever one of those two gets the most yards, potentially. So you and Andy are both on the Ravens. I've gone with the Eagles. Next up, we have the Sunday Night Football, which it sees your beloved San Francisco 49ers travelling across the country to take on the Buffalo Bills. Now, I can understand why you potentially pick your own team, but surely in this particular regard, only an absolute madman would pick the 49ers to beat the Bills. Are you that madman?
No, it's too cold in Buffalo for these Californian boys. Not a chance.
I mean, let's be honest. They're basically playing in Canada.
Yeah. I mean, even if they had Purdy back. Yeah.
It's a tough ask, isn't it? The Bills look, and they're coming off the bye, so they're going to be rested. They're going to be raring to go. I think this is a really tough game. This is really tough for the Niners, and obviously, if they drop another one, they'll go to 5 and 7, and it's looking a little bleak. I think the only thing that's keeping them in it is the fact that no one seems to want to win that division. So,
yep.
So our Monday Night Football, the last game of the week, sees the Cleveland Browns travelling to the Mile High City to take on the Denver Broncos. Myself and Andy have both gone with the home field advantage, even though the Browns obviously got the win against the Steelers last time out. I think a lot of that was to do with the weather, as it was very snowy. So yeah, we've gone with the Broncos on this one. How are you seeing that one fall?
Yeah, I'll go Broncos.
Excellent. Right, so that is all 16 of the picks done for myself, Mr. Cook, and Mr. Herlihy. There is no need for a tiebreak, as all of the picks are different, so we should hopefully end up with a definitive winner. Obviously, if not, the points will just be shared. All that leaves us with is Week 13's side bet. Now, obviously, so Week 12 side bet was void, as no picks were made. So we go into Week 13 with Andy on 31 and myself on 34. So obviously, with Andy being behind, he can choose either to take the first selection or to put me in for the first selection myself. Which way would you like to go, Mr.
I'm going to take first pick, purely because I'm looking at a game literally here in front of me, and I think it's locked in, this one. So I will take the Detroit Lions to beat the Chicago Bears, please.
Interesting. Not saying it's not a great pick, because I do think they will win. It's not where I would have gone first off, to be honest with you. I, in that case, will take the Kansas City Chiefs at home to the Las Vegas Raiders as my first selection. And I will follow that up with the Washington Commanders at home to the Tennessee Titans. Your next two selections, please, Mr. Cook.
I will see your Commanders versus Titans pick, and I will pick up the Texans to beat the Jaguars.
And
I will then follow that up with The Denver Broncos to beat the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, that was going to be my next one. That was going to be my next pick. In that case, I'm a little bit surprised that these words are coming out of my mouth, but I am going to take the Dallas Cowboys, mainly because Tommy DeVito has proved he is definitely not the answer in New York. But then again, neither is Drew Lock. Let's not say silly, stupid things now. So the Cowboys for me to beat the Giants. My last pick. I'll go with the Seahawks to beat the Jets.
Oh, not where I saw you going. Absolutely the pick to make. I've got two in mind. One's a little more risky than the other, I feel. So, I'm going to throw caution to the wind. Matthew, the two games I am looking at are the Vikings to beat the Cardinals or the Buccaneers to beat the Panthers. Which of those two games would you pick, and which way would you go?
I would go for. Did you say the Cardinals and the Seahawks was the first one?
I was saying the Vikings.
Oh, Vikings,
Cardinals.
Yeah, I'd go with Vikings over the Bucks and the Panthers because I think maybe the Panthers might beat the Bucks.
This is my issue. So the problem I've got is I think if I pick the Bucks, the Panthers are absolutely going to win that game and just knock the shit out of me. So we are both on the same page there, Matthew. I will take the Minnesota Vikings beat the Arizona Cardinals. Everybody bet your house on the Cardinals to now win that game. Because, quite frankly, I am cursed.
Lovely stuff. So, just to clarify then, Andy's 4 teams in a side bet. He has the Detroit Lions at home to the Chicago Bears in the first game of the week. He has the Houston Texans at the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Denver Broncos at home to the Cleveland Browns in the last game of the week, and the Minnesota Vikings at home to the Arizona Cardinals right in the middle of the week. I have the Kansas City Chiefs at home to the Las Vegas Raiders on Black Friday, the Commanders at home to the Tennessee Titans on Sunday, the Dallas Cowboys at home to the New York Giants, second up Thanksgiving Day, and the Seattle Seahawks at the New York Jets on this Sunday. Matt, if you were given a shiny £1 coin and you were asked to double your money, you had to put it on either of those 4 selections, where would you be putting your money, and who do you think has got the best shot of picking up 4 points out of a possible 4? Myself or Mr. Cook with our selection?
I'd have to go with Mr. Cook, I think.
Lions, Texans, Broncos, Vikings. Now, if that, ladies and gentlemen, is not a ringing endorsement to go and put on a 4-fold accumulator, I don't know what it is. That brings us to the end of this week's podcast. Thank you very much to our guest, Mr. Matthew Toots Herlihy. Hope that wasn't too painful for your first go around this season.
No, it was lovely. Lovely. Good to be back.
Excellent. Obviously, you're more than welcome to come back on again when it gets to sort of playoff season, Super Bowl picks, stuff like that.
Yeah, we can
Andy,
talk
so
about
what
our
else?
Super Bowl fantasies and stuff. Fantasy.
Exactly. We'll see who was who, if anyone, got the correct Super Bowl pick. Who's the closest? Andy, do you have anything to bring to the table before we finish?
Obviously, we've got Thanksgiving coming up this week. Oz covered the fact that we here in the UK do not celebrate. But I am not sure that's 100% true. Mr. Williams, talk to me. What's on the menu?
Well, slightly different this year. As I will not be leaving the house. I'll be staying in for the evening, so might go and pick up a few little bits and pieces. Might because when we had lockdown 4 years ago, I put together a little Thanksgiving table, which went down quite well with my good lady wife. So I'll see if we can recreate that. See how we get on. Maybe get a little bit of turkey, probably just a turkey breast or something like that. No need to go crazy. A little bit of stuffing. Might have a go at making some cornbread if we can be asked.
Pumpkin pie, maybe? Snack
I've
element
had it
out.
a couple of times. Not that big a fan.
Nah. It's an
Bit
acquired
bland.
taste, I think. Yeah.
I don't mind a pumpkin pie. I first sampled pumpkin pie a few years back, and it was, that thing that you expect it's going to be a certain way, but at the same time you're like, I mean, people love this stuff, so there's got to be something to it. And I had it and was like, that is delightful.
I think the mistake that people make is that people obviously get the carving pumpkins for like Halloween, and then think, oh, well, if I just scoop out the shit, I can just use that for the pumpkin pie. It's like they're not grown for taste; they're grown for size, so you can carve them. So you need to be using smaller or just tinned pumpkin.
I just think the tinned pumpkin is the way.
It just needs. It feels like it needs loads of adding to it to make it to kick it up a notch and stuff like that.
Mm.
I did once make a pecan pie, which was very nice.
Yeah.
Will you two boys be doing anything?
Just watching American football.
It's the best answer. It's the best answer you could give, really, to be honest.
I mean, there was the year we did full blown Thanksgiving. We invited our resident American to come and enjoy. They brought a pumpkin pie, and yeah, we went all out. It was a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. I think there was like Thanksgiving food and a takeaway sort of situation going on. But I'm with Matthew. It is just an opportunity to get more football in your eyeballs. So we say every year, oh, what we're going to do for Thanksgiving this year, and ultimately it's just sit and watch the football. So yeah, it's probably going to end up being that.
Very, very nice. So, as we said, thank you very much to Mr. Herlihy for joining us this week as the guest. Thank you to all of you for tuning in, listening, watching, if you're watching us on YouTube. If this is your first time watching us here on YouTube, maybe think about a little subscribe to the channel. We've got plenty of different podcasts coming our way. We have obviously the NFL podcast, which obviously you've enjoyed. We also have a weekly football podcast where we discuss the ins and outs of Middlesbrough, Hull City, Nottingham Forest. There's the monthly wrestling podcast where we discuss the upcoming and previous WWE pay-per-views or premium live events, as they're referred to. There's the guys over at the Formula One podcast. Obviously, Tony was on the NFL podcast last week. You should go and watch those guys. And then, of course, the leader of the podcast network himself, Mr. Cook. He has the Darkest Timeline podcast where he unloads the deepest, darkest thoughts in that cranium that is each week. Give it a listen. Well worth your time. Thank you as always for tuning in. We'll be back next week to go through the Thanksgiving week games, and we'll also predict the next week's games. Obviously, there'll be some more teams on bye starting from next week, so the games will be fewer. But tune in next week, and we'll do it all over again. But until then, thank you for listening, and it's tatty bye for now.
So there we go. What do you think to that? Big thank you to Matthew for being our guest. We love our guests. We always appreciate anybody that takes the time out to come on the podcast. It's always a big thank you to them. And it's a big thank you to you for listening, watching, being a part of the crew, just generally joining in. If you want to be a bigger part of the crew and help the crew out, like, share, subscribe, comment, leave reviews where you can leave reviews, and check out the website, thecookiecast.com. There we have social media links and an email button, and that way you can get in touch with us. That is it for this one, and until next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.
Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening to this awesome cookie cast.